opened the event. No, wait. I think we've opened the event. Yeah, here we have, Georgia and Matt and Francesca, and I'm sure the others are there. Andy, good morning. Val, good morning. Jane, good morning. Does anybody remember Crackerjack? It's Wednesday, it's 11 a.m. and it's Business Bites. It used to be Friday, it's 5 p.m. and it's Crackerjack. Who else have we got? Claire, good morning. Ian, good morning. Val, it's lovely to all feel your energy. And Milka, good morning. And Bev, good morning. Danny, good morning. Lucy, good morning. Say hello, everyone. Let's allow everybody to get on. Andrew, good morning. Alex, good morning. Did I miss anyone there? Abby, good morning. Chloe, Carly. Yeah, Milka's on too. Val, she is indeed. Well, you can all see these messages too. I don't need to read the messages out to you. In a minute, I'm going to, we're on a steep learning curve with webinars. I'm just making sure I didn't miss anybody. Lucy, did I miss you? If I did, good morning. Barry, good morning. Mags, good morning. And Mia, good morning. Emma, good morning. Lenka, good morning. Andrew, good morning. Yeah. Let's see, people are still coming in, so just give us a couple of minutes to get everybody in. Maria, good morning. Good morning. I'll start, right, we've got a lot of our attendees in. Sarah, good morning. Vicky, good morning. A hug to you too, Georgia. Kiss, kiss. Sharon, good morning. Nice to have you all here. Let's see who else. Marcus, good morning. Yeah, good. All right, we've got a good amount of our attendees in. Pep, good morning. Elaine, good morning. Good to have you all here. So we're really getting the hang of this webinar stuff, although I'm not getting complacent at all about our steep learning curve on this. But I am going to start with a little bit of instruction. So you can see just below the chat box there, can you see you've got two little round circles. One is a speech box and the other one is a question mark. So if you want to make a comment, and the comments are really good, what we've come to learn is the more you're interacting with each other on the comments and stuff, it's really good. So if you've got something to add it in there. It's another dimension to what's going on in the room. Sometimes it's really helpful for me too when you do that, although I can't read them all when I'm concentrating on many other things. And then if you can see the question mark, that's when you've got a question. So if you type a question with a question mark, it will automatically come up in a blue box. Do you want to just give us a demo of that, Declan? Show everybody how it comes up in a blue box. But when you type a question and it comes up in a blue box, there's a demo like that, you see. When it comes up, if you could click back to the speech bubble, we are going to have Q&A at the end, because that makes the flow better for me, if not for anybody else. But at the end, Declan would have saved all those blue question boxes, and he'll bring them in at the end. So if as we go along you've got questions, just type your question, but I won't address it straight away. Don't worry. At the end, we will bring all those blue questions into the webinar. So you have the opportunity to comment or ask a question, and the questions will take to the end. Okay. So with that, I think on the published thing, it does say 11:05, and so I'm not going to start until 11:05, just in case. See, I just saw someone else just popped in there. Hi, Jill. She said she's excited for this webinar today. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it, Jill. Whilst we're waiting then those 5 minutes, I just want to say, It's been another frantic week for everyone, I'm sure. Or I don't know, maybe not, but most certainly that's the way. Hi, Jodie, Rachel, hi. Most certainly for me it has. I hope for all of you employees out there, there was a new update from the HMRC 2 days ago that's going to affect your wages. If you haven't yet got that, I'm not going to talk about that here now, but if you haven't got it, contact me afterwards and I can help you find that information. There's 2 important updates that really affect us in the hairdressing industry from HMRC just 2 days ago. So if you haven't caught that up, Karen, my accountant, many of you know Karen, she deals with all our accounts. She and I spent a fair amount of time, along with, thank you, Jane Reynolds. She was in on the research yesterday, and Leanne Potts was in on the research yesterday. We were phoning and getting as much information as we could. So we've got information from NHF, from Peninsula, HMRC. So we think we've got the information right. So that's really, really good. Yep, Karen is our star indeed. So there's still people joining the room. So I just want to repeat again, just quickly. For some reason, I've lost the time on here. That's very careless of me. Okay, it's 11:07, so we're beyond our morning, Leanne. Don't know if you've just popped on. I just mentioned you and said thank you for the research you have helped, and Jane, and this wages thing. Anyway, so 2 important updates. So I'm going to start, as it were. And as much as it's so lovely to have you all on this webinar, and it's like it's surprising how you can really feel everyone's energy. You know, I love it. But if you've come here for an easy ride today, you're in the wrong place, because I'm going to give it to you as it is. That's okay, Michelle. I can see you now. Hi, Richard. Said Richard, I'm in. There's probably a few. I hope Daniel is Daniel's checking to make sure that people are not messaging us and saying they can't get in. But I think we're all getting better at that, so that's good. So yeah, so I'm not going to give you an easy ride today. So forgive me in advance if at any time you know, I say something that kind of stabs a little bit somewhere. All right, but my job is not to bring to you pink and fluffy. I see my responsibility much more serious than that. And one of the things that I am desperate to happen for, you know, everybody that I work with, for people, what did Winston Churchill say? On my watch, right? I'm desperate for people to come out of this bigger and stronger and really understand what is required. I'm just going to change my glasses, guys. One of the other things I've learned is that actually these glasses are better. There you go. That's better, right? So let's start today. I'm doing it again. I'm touching the computer and not the I'm doing the wrong buttons. So today, 7 mistakes businesses make in a crisis. And over the last few weeks, you know, we certainly have been able to observe, learn from our own experience, lots of talking, messages, emails, news, lots and lots of things. So we've got lots of information to pull on. And the most common mistake that is made, and by the way, we're talking here, number one, about all businesses, not just our own, although we will focus in on our own industry. Secondly, we're not just talking about the current crisis, we're talking about any crisis, okay? Because many of the fundamentals of that they're relevant to any type of crisis, whether it's a small crisis or a large crisis, you know, like this particular one. pandemic crisis. So we're looking at both, okay? We're looking at both and all, because it's always a good opportunity to learn. We learn most from pain and pleasure. And because if we're learning from pain or pleasure, what happens is it goes into a different part of the brain that stores the information. And so it's a good time for learning, believe it or not. You might not feel like it is, but I promise you it is. So who wants to take a guess at what the most common mistake, the first most common mistake that businesses make in a crisis? Okay, panic, Rachel said. Sit and wait. No. Make snap decisions. All of these are in there, but it's not the first one and the most common. Cash flow. No, these are all do nothing. These are all good answers, but they're not the right one. Okay, stop. Maybe I'll take you right there. The number one mistake is crisis provision. In other words, the most common mistake is made before the crisis, in that they are not prepared or ready for a crisis. So they go into a crisis unprepared. Now you might feel that that's a little, there's a little of a tough judgment in the current crisis, but remember I did say this is. We're talking here about all crisis, anytime, any business, right? And I thought long and hard about it, because I thought, well, how could we have prepared for this? And yet some of the clues were there. It was difficult to believe what was happening. But, on my news feed this morning popped up that for those of you that go to Pro Hair Live, and you will know that we are massive exhibitors at Pro Hair Live, one of the things that I realised this morning for the first time is that the Nightingale of the North, they're calling it, it's in Manchester Central. And how it caught my attention is that it popped up on a news feed, and I recognised the building. It's such a beautiful building. I love that building. So now, it was whilst we were there at Pro Hair Live, and some of you were there, so you can comment about this. We were exhibiting at Pro Hair Live. It was on the Monday afternoon. There were lots of, Susan Campbell was with us from Italy, the owner of Census. We had Jonathan Appleby, he's in distribution. He was there with us. Norman Ellis was on the stand at the same time. I'd just come off the stage from speaking on the business stage. Some of you are going to remember this, and we heard there and then that Northern Italy had gone into lockdown, and they had cancelled Cosmoprof Bologna. Some of you remember that, right? It literally turned people there into a tailspin. And Susan was like, "Oh my God, how am I going to get home?" Well, because she was flying into Bologna, and it was on shutdown. It was on lockdown, so she was slightly concerned. She was, but she still didn't have any idea of the enormity of what was happening. And neither did any of us. I've spoken to Susan this morning. We said, "Wow, little did we know what was ahead." So the clues were there, but of course it was difficult to see. Even our own governments have underestimated what's happening there. But nevertheless, what we are understanding is that the lack of preparedness, is a massive issue. And it's something I believe that, given the time that we have now, we have an opportunity to change this. So pens and pads at the ready. You are going to have a full action list at the end of this, I promise you. So the definition of a crisis is a time of intense difficulty or danger. And we can all identify with this, I'm sure. Let's try and, think about that for a second. That lack of preparedness is, it just exasperates the crisis, because what it means is, in a crisis, what is something that is needed in a crisis? What is one of the number one ingredients of, if you like, of a crisis? Something you need. Give me some feedback here. Okay, calm. But where does that calm come from? Clarity, yeah. But where does it come? Leadership. Thank you, Maria. Well done. You need leadership. That's the first thing. Someone's got to step up. And in my opinion, Boris Johnson's done an absolutely stellar job, which is, why, well, we're all concerned for everybody, but there is this real concern for Boris because he's done such a good job in leading. Everybody was like looking, what's Boris going to say next? What do we do, Boris? Right? And now suddenly poor Boris is in intensive care. So prayers to him, and let's hope that we see him on the other side. That's what we need to do. So that lack of preparedness, I'm still doing it. I'll get used to it. Research shows 40% of businesses do not have a crisis plan in place at all. And I believe, right, so that's businesses as in all industry. I believe in the hair industry, that's probably much higher. So what we have is a situation, we go into a crisis, right, and the leader is running around like a headless chicken. So I want us to think about, what that is like for, one, the leader, but two, for everybody else. Just think about that for a second, okay? Because that's important for us to understand. So let's think about types of crisis. Let's get into our own industry now. And what I want you to do, I've got a list here, but I've not put it up there on the board. I want you to give me a list of types of crisis that we face in the salon, not just the one we have right now. So, yeah, fire. Jude, I am so glad you come up with that one. You're in a question bubble, by the way. Being sued, Marcus. Yes. Break-ins, Laura. Yes. Jodie, maternity leave can be. Yes. Short of cash flow. Yes. Stylist leaving. Recession. Flooding. No water. Come on. There's staff taking customers. Skin reactions. The leader becomes ill. Some of the others, guys. I've got a couple more here. Yeah, technological. So we arrive and we can't get into our appointment book. So we don't know which clients are going to walk through the door at 9 o'clock. Fraud. Yes, Marcus. Quite right. Coronavirus. Yes, Georgia. We're living it. The bills go up. Yeah. So suddenly, something goes up. Complaints. Yes, Jude. That's on my list too. Flooding. I've got one more on my list that no one said. Flooding. Yeah. One more I think I've got. Oh, death. Yeah. Deception. Yeah. Eviction, yeah. They are all, we're going to talk about symptoms and causes in a minute, and bank fraud, we've had all these. Oh, okay, one more is on my list that none of you guys had said, and that's you've got no electric. Okay, that's pretty serious. Let me ask this, let me just see this. You can just put a tick. So how many of you, in 30 years I've been in business, 5 salons, I've had more salons along the way. How many of you have ever been in a situation where there's been a power cut in the middle of the day, or the electric company come along and say, we've got essential works, we're going to have to cut the electric off. Okay, come on. Yeah, me 3 times. Yeah, and Laura says me 3 times. She's been in business about 3 years. Yeah. Okay. Yes, good. Not, yeah, good. Someone actually cut through the power lines. I remember that, Perry. Yeah, that one's not fixed quickly. Yeah, good. Still work through it. Yeah, well, we can talk about some of that. So, types of crisis. So, we're realizing now how much risk we are at in terms of crisis. And this one is severe, but there are other crises which are maybe much more easily solved. But if we're not ready for them, what happens is the leader running around like a headless chicken, stressed. It's not good for the team. They start to feel insecure, right? You know what they say at Harvard Business School? They say people don't leave jobs, they leave leaders. That resonates with me a lot. People don't leave jobs, they leave leaders. People need a job. They need a job for life. So they don't leave jobs, they leave leaders. Really important. Now, there's a couple of others actually that didn't come up there. But snow, we have to close every year for snow, right? Or not. Like, you understand what I'm saying? I mean, you know, some don't close for snow, but you understand what I'm saying. I mean, it has a real effect on the business. So it's really important that whenever there is a crisis, we're able to move quickly. And if we've got plans, and it's interesting that Jude was like right in there first with fire, because yeah, absolutely. About, Jude will tell me in a minute, I think it was about 5 years ago, might be longer, time goes quickly. About 5 or 6 years ago, Jude took her daughter on a well-earned holiday 7 years ago, well-earned holiday to Florida. And while she was in Florida with her daughter, her salon burned to the ground while she was in Florida. And it was really quite incredible what happened, because Jude's team, particularly her sister, but all of the team rallied around. In the first instance, they teamed up with another salon. So they went to another salon, and she does hair and beauty. So they set up a beauty room at the back of a card shop, literally within 24 hours. And then they went to another salon and said, can the team work here? Well, anyway, that salon owner, who agreed, yes, your team can come and work in here, then approached all the team and said, right, well, leave Jude and work for me, and we'll go. I can't even remember what the numbers were, but he offered them more money to do that. So Jude then had to she found an empty premises. They got 2 basins, they got 4 chairs. We got as much equipment to them as we could help them out with. Passion for hair. Jude always says one of the first phone calls, she said, phone Debbie and Daniel, one of the first phone calls they made. And so I've had that one too, Ian. But their business interruption was minimal. Now, that is good leadership, okay? One of the problems we have with crisis, and I'm telling you this story, I've got a couple of stories for you, because we can all learn from it, right? So if that did happen to you, you know, what would you do about your business? Now, some people would say, well, I've got business interruption insurance, and so I wouldn't do anything. I'd let the insurance take care of it. Well, good luck with that. That's all I can say. Good luck with that. Because you'll lose your business before the insurance sort it out. You'll have nothing left at the end of it. You know, Jude's primary, and actually her insurance, one day, there you are, Jude saying, one day they were up and running again. She learned a lot about insurance and what's not covered. At that time, she learned a lot about insurance. Yeah, at that time. But her primary concern was keeping the clients, right? Because that's the business at the end of the day. That's the business. So that's the point, you know, that we keep the clients. Now, here's a really good point. I'm sure that everyone on here has got customer data, right? And so you've got your client and the details and etc. etc. One of the things that has happened a lot is that what we have come to realise in this crisis now is that our customer data is not up to date. And we've not got up-to-date emails, and we've not got up-to-date telephones, because the client changed her telephone number. She didn't tell anybody. Then the client gets angry because she doesn't know what's going on. We're going to talk about that in a minute. You know, Daniel, it was actually Daniel that found this piece of research. He now does some fantastic presentations. So those of you that were at Business Counts would have heard this presentation from Daniel, when he said, it has now been shown that data is more valuable than gold. I'll pause on that for a second. Data is more valuable than gold. And the reason why I'm pausing is because your pens and pencils ought to be working really hard right now. Sorry, Daniel, more valuable than oil. That's right. I quoted you wrong. So, there's something for us to, really think about, making sure that we've got all the right information with our clients. So in talking about number one, right, the most common mistake that people make, this lack of preparedness that businesses make, we should have a plan to duck. when things happen, a plan to duck. So in other words, so for an example, when a recession comes, you have an opportunity to duck the recession. So you keep going, right? But you duck and you let the impact of the recession pass you by. Okay? Throughout this webinar, hopefully you'll pick up some of those tips of what those things might be. For other things, you'll have a plan B. No hot water, no electricity, snow, flood, whatever it might be, those contingency plans. And we've got time to take note of all of those things that we had there on this chat here. We've got time to be able to take every single one of those and write a contingency plan for ourselves. And if you get nothing else out of this webinar than that, then you'd have spent the next, I don't know, however long it's going to take you to write those, you'd have spent the time wisely. Okay, so let's go to number 2, which is communication. So the second mistake that businesses make is the communication, the way that they communicate. It's really important to, and it's hard. So let's imagine, right, there you are, you're in a crisis, you're running around like a headless chicken, and actually, number one, you probably don't feel like communicating sometimes, right? You're too busy in your headspace. Number 2, maybe you've not got the time. Number 3, if you have, is your communication, you know, is it, what's the right word that I'm thinking of here? You know, is it coming across that you are feeling very, you know, it needs to be nice and calm, not that you're feeling very anxious and stressed and out of control, right? Because then people start to feel that insecurity. So really important to keep people informed. Number 1, of course, is the team, particularly in our industry. Data is really important and precious, but so are the team. Without a team, a business is nothing. So making sure that the team feels secure, they know what's going on, they know what's happening, they feel connected, they don't feel outside. It's their career too. It's their stakeholders in our business, right? And if they're standing by when there's a crisis and looking on, they're thinking, oh gosh, this ship is sinking. That's the point at which people start thinking, maybe I'll jump ship and go and find a better one. So people are going to have a lot of time to think, a lot of time to plan the future. You know, things are going to, when we talk about things changing, and they are going to be, people are going to change too, all in different directions. That's why next week our webinar is called Let's Talk 3-Dimensional Solutions, right? Because that's what we're going to need, a three-dimensional view on the whole thing, right? So we've talked about this before, making sure, like, you know, if you haven't got a formal timetable, if you've got a smaller team, you don't need one, but making sure that you've got connection with the team. You know, there's all sorts of things that you can do, and I've seen people doing great things, you know, getting the team to, I've seen really quite a lot of people, you know, getting the team to write up, you know, they're holding up things, and then you make a tile post so that people can see that the team are still all together. This is important. It's important for the team. Can be quizzes. Hopefully they're taking part in webinars. We had our biggest attended webinar was Andy's last Friday. He had 104 people on the webinar, you know, mostly stylists. It was a great webinar. Thank you, Andy. Andy's doing part 2, not next week because we're doing Richard next week, but the week after. So Andy's coming back and doing part 2. We're going to put a few more webinars on. Census are doing a webinar. We've got Jude on Thursday with a Q&A. So hopefully they're taking part in this. Yeah, we've got here team meetings is doing fantastic, doing team meetings. We've been doing quizzes, swapping on Saturday. We put up things that we're swapping or giving away, etc., or selling. Someone here, we've done a newsletter, e-blast about the team and ask clients what they're doing. That's good. You know, they're the ways to keep team engaged. Even a telephone call from the team, you know, from you to the team will be fantastic. And I know some of you have probably thought about this. So yeah, Carly's lives are so good. They are. Yeah. House party you're using. Yeah. That and all that is good. I know some of you have had difficulty because you've reached out to me getting some of the team to engage, and that's okay. We're learning a lot about our team too. Okay, just put it on furlough for now. Deal with it later. Let's talk about the clients for a second, keeping the clients engaged. And yeah, so someone sent a newsletter. We like that. We're doing someone here. We're doing some calls today, ringing 2 to 3 clients every day, mainly the ones not on social media. That's a really good idea. We've all got some lonely clients, people that are living alone, vulnerable clients. I know we've got one client at Feathers. She's been coming to us for 30 years, and her husband has severe dementia, and she's Elaine's client. And Elaine is ringing her every week to keep in touch with her. So, you know, that's really good too. But let me just, to give, lots of people have asked me about, you know, social media and engaging clients and getting clients to engage on like reaching out for hair care advice and stuff like that. And when that happens, I'll tell you, it's a real buzz when your clients are, one of my team, Constance, her manager's on here, Jodie, she did a video the other day on the Simonson MIDI waiver, and within an hour of doing that video, I can't remember whether it was live or a video, she'll tell us in a minute, she sold 3 MIDI waivers to clients. We sent them out. Oh, it was your sister. Your sister, Constance is on here. It was your sister that did it, was it? That's why I didn't see it. That's interesting. Okay, so your sister in Australia. I did see that. Yes, she also did the copper hair. She's going to come up right now, because what I have done here is I want to just show you the story we had on Feathers yesterday. We get a lot of traction from this, a lot of clients private messaging, etc., etc. So Declan, do it for me, because I can't remember how to do it. Can you run that thing for me? I believe you can still hear me. So this was yesterday. This is the story. Ignore that one. That's we're always learning. We're doing a webinar. Okay, but this was the story yesterday. So keep calm, stay blonde, copper tones, red, amplify your red, brunettes do it better, color revive Euphora. There's a client. These are amazing products, made a huge difference to my hair. This client, thinking of you all, thank you for this. It's a godsend. How can I get products? We can send them to your house. Here's one. Someone said, oh, thank you for sending it to me. And then this is our Salon Love campaign for Passion for Hair customers. You can go on and pick up that Salon Love campaign. That's Constance's sister. This was a live that Jodie did. That's the Simonson tools. Oh, you can hear this one, I think. No, we can't. That's because Declan's got the sound turned down. Anyway, so this is a video that one of the team did on Zero Yellow shampoo, the other product she used. This is keeping the team busy too, you know, getting them to do these videos and learning new skills. And I know lots of you have done this, and so that's good. Jane says, send text messages to clients who bought retail in the last 10 weeks asking if they require any products. She got 12 orders. Well done, Jane. And there it says that we might not be able to help you from behind the chair, but thanks. See if we can keep that one on there. We might not be able to help you from behind the chair, but rest assured, we want to bring you help and advice to continue to look and feel good. If you need advice for your hair or product recommendations, message, telephone, or email us. And if you want help with that, Passion for Hair are still shipping orders. We are currently shipping more orders to consumers than hairdressers, which is interesting. Our business has completely transformed from big heavy boxes like this to little tiny boxes like this with 2 products in, which is interesting, but it's keeping us in touch with our customers and it's keeping them in touch with their customers. And if any of you are trying to stick to your furlough rules or what the accountant has told you, etc., then you reach out to me afterwards. And there is a way that you can get involved in this with your clients, okay? So just trying to give everybody ideas, and you can see how we build up that story. That's taken us 2 weeks to get to that level, right? Because getting that feedback from clients has taken us time, etc. So you've got to put a little bit of, a little bit of time into it as well. Michelle said, I've lost you. Don't know why that is, Michelle. Declan will help you with that. So Declan, can we go back to the presentation, please? Thank you. So when we're talking about communication, we've got to be honest, okay? And if you don't know, you must say you don't know, and it's okay. Be sincere, and let's think about how it's important to be timely. So you might not have anything to say yet or any answers in a crisis, right? But I want you just to think for a second. And this was the only example I could come up with. And it's kind of a bit emotional, really. And I was like, I'd rather find something a little less emotional. Maybe that's just because it's where I am right now. But you remember when Princess Diana died, right? And the royal family didn't respond for days. Buckingham Palace did put out, put out a press release, and they said the family are, dealing with the death and looking after the boys and etc. But it went on for days and days and days. And if you've seen the film The Queen, then you will know that eventually Tony Blair went to the Queen and he said, the public have to see you. This is a time of national crisis. And whilst I appreciate that as a family, you're trying to deal with it internally, and 2 little boys had lost their mother and etc. You're the leader and the nation need you, okay? And so at that time there was a lot of damage to the royal family, but of course the Queen's response went a long way to kind of fix that, as it were. And then of course consequently the funeral, etc. But the leader's got to be in the front. The leader has got to be able to maintain control. If you can't maintain control, look like you're maintaining control, because you don't want you want everyone on the same page, and you don't want any damage to your reputation, whether that be your reputation as a boss or your reputation as a business, or whatever it may be. So it's really about, it's about that, taking that responsibility. Now, in this current crisis, something that's really, really important, keep everything documented. The HMRC have confirmed that they're going to spend the next 5 years on audit with all this money that they're giving out. So make sure you keep good records. It's an exceptional package that the government have given to the country to keep the economy moving. That's the point of it, is to keep the economy moving. So make sure you keep really good records of, how you have calculated the furlough, where you got the information from, etc. I want to, something. I put here, avoid listening to unauthorized rumors and theories, and that has been a big mistake that people are making in this particular this particular crisis. I mean, what people are listening to, and you know, in the beginning, I don't know how many of you got these pictures of, oh my God, look, the army are invading London. I've got an uncle that lives in London. I made a phone call. Can you look outside of the window and tell me what you see? Well, we don't, nothing. Everything's the same as normal. I mean, it's crazy, but it was really, you know, getting people, you know, whipped up. So don't listen to those unauthorized rumors and theories. And then one thing I remembered about communication in a crisis, and it was a small crisis, but it was probably one of the first lessons I ever had. And it was, I was actually on maternity leave with Declan. Declan was born on Easter Saturday, 1993. We were closed on Good Friday, but I was at work on the Thursday doing hair. So I was at work on the Thursday doing hair. We were off on Good Friday, and I went into labour at 6:30 on the Saturday morning, Easter Saturday. I took 4 weeks off of work. In that 4 weeks, this happened. I used to have a client. I'm trying to wrap my brain earlier today to remember her surname, but I bet Elaine will come up with it. Her name was Val. And Val used to come every week. She was one of our best clients, like come every week for a blow dry. And you know, she used to have her hair coloured every 3 weeks. And in fact, she had a home in Mallorca, not far from my parents. And so when I went to visit my parents, I used to often go and meet them in Mallorca. And we'd become, not only was she my client, she was a very good friend. And on the 4 weeks that I was away, one of the Saturdays, a stylist went sick. And so somebody decided to step up and take, you know, leadership and responsibility, which I really appreciate. And I'm not knocking that at all. But what they decided to do, no, not Jan Val's. No, her name was definitely Val. Husband was an accountant, used to be the accountant at the Braintree foyer. She'll come up with it now. Anyway, so stylists had rung in sick on the Saturday. They looked at the book, and actually, Val used to always get her hair blow dried on a Friday morning, and she'd changed her appointment to the Saturday. So the person that had stepped up for the leadership and decided that, oh, Val has her hair blow dried every week, and so call Val and tell her we can't do it today, come Monday. The reason why Val had changed her appointment, this is all unbeknown to me, I'm at home, you know, trying to look after a baby. The reason why Val had changed her appointment from Friday to Saturday was because she had a very, very important party to go to. She wanted her hair freshly done for that party, and they phoned and they cancelled her appointment. Didn't ask her, just cancelled it, because it was, the communication was like, you know, and someone rang and said, hello, Val, can't do your hair today, we'll do you Monday, bye. You know, I wasn't there, but let's imagine that's how it was. We lost her as a client. And I went round her house when I realised, you know, that she'd dropped out of the appointment book, which was only like 2 or 3 weeks later. I was mortified, and I rang her and I said, Val, can I come round for a coffee? And she said, yeah, sure you can. I was hoping you're going to bring the baby round, you know. So around we went. I said, I am so sorry, Val, for what happened. Like, this is terrible. And she went, I cannot tell you how upset I am about that, etc., etc. I said, oh, Val, come back. She said, no, I'm not coming back. I said, Val, if you come back, I'll do your blow dry for you free for a year. She said to me, it's not about money. I'm not coming back. So that story I remembered this morning. I wanted to tell you because it gives us an idea. I'm sure some of you have got stories just like that. You see how communication, reputation damage, how it can be. Yeah, Laura's put, it's heartbreaking. Yeah, so heartbreaking, Laura. I still remember it today. Right, so come to me this morning when I was thinking about doing this. Yeah, moments like that make you feel sick. Makes me feel sick even now, because I think about all the clients over the year over the years that's happened to, that I've not, that I don't know about. And in fact, Barry's on here, my very good friend Barry. He was telling me about. See if he'll type this for me. He was somewhere really just recently in the last couple of weeks, and somewhere he was or whatever, and this lady said, oh, he said his name, and this lady said, oh, you're Barry Stephen, and he said, yes, I am. Do you come to my salons? And she said she used to, and then she proceeded to tell him a story, whatever. Luckily, Barry was able to persuade her to come back. He said, come back to me personally, I'll roll out the red carpet for you, and he got her to come back. Really important. She said, I spoke to her daughter recently, still can't remember her surname. All right, don't worry. It doesn't matter. She's Val and she will remain as Val. So think about the public relations. That's what we're talking about, the PR. Of course, these days we have social media to worry about. People going out on Facebook, etc., etc. So that communication's really important. I'm sure many of you have had, this crisis where the client complaint pops up on Facebook, right? And the way that you deal with that, Barry, I was in Costco. That's right. I'm remembering the story now, Barry. Jodie, let's get her back. I promise you, Jodie, I tried. So, let's think a minute about the PR made my campaign to get Val back. So I'm going to stop looking at your comments. You're making me laugh. Let me have a little drink of water for a second. Think of the money over, I think Declan is 1993, is 27. Think of the money over 27 years. So public relations, are really, really very important. That's what I was going to say. So, when somebody puts a comment on Facebook, the way with that is to very elegantly respond with the truth, but in a way that as other reading the feed, people can see that as a business, you're trying to be reasonable. Everybody knows that people make mistakes. Mistakes happen. People are not happy with. So when you get this feedback on Facebook, it's really important that you respond in this very considered and elegant way. And the dialogue is really quite important, right? The dialogue, what to say and how to say it. And if you're not good at that stuff yourself, find somebody that is. And know that the next time that happens, you're going to ask somebody to help you. Now, you see, on March the 23rd, when Boris told us, that's it, you've got to close the salon, I've got an example of dialogue here. People were writing, salon closed, business closed for business, putting up signs on their social media. And I was like this, no. Because when you say your business is closed, there's too many interpretations. And I couldn't get the message out there fast enough to tell everybody your business isn't closed, it's paused. Your business is paused, right? And you see the difference that dialogue can make. The business is paused, it's not closed. So really important what we put out there. So make it considered. 2 for it, we've talked about that. Make it elegant and considered whenever you are putting the information out there. Okay, number 3, the mistake. They lose sight of the long-term vision and purpose of the business in trying to solve solve the crisis, right? So let me give you an example. The first one that come to my head was that someone rings in sick or someone leaves. What do? We try to stuff clients in, right? So if you're stuffing the clients in and you're all about luxury hairdressing, what have we then done to every client that comes in during that period of time? We've moved away from our vision and our purpose of being a luxury brand. It would be like EasyJet saying, well, we had to cancel a plane, so we're putting someone on your lap on today's flight. Not quite the same, but you understand what I'm trying to say. Now, I also just told you the story of Val, right? I mean, I don't know, what you do. I've got to tell you, at that time, when we had a post-mortem about it, I said, why couldn't you have just stayed half an hour late to do Val's hair? You know, why didn't you call me? I'd have brought the baby in and had him under one arm while I was blow drying with the other arm. You know, there has to be another solution all of the time. So what's most important is the business must emerge from the crisis on brand. And I don't get me wrong, I'm not underestimating for 1 minute what it's like. I know what it's like. You know, I live your business life. I promise you. I have 5 salons and Passion for Hair. They're actually 2 different types of business. They're B2B and B2C, right? Business to consumer and business to business. They're completely different businesses. So I know how hard it is, but just because it's hard, it doesn't make it so that we shouldn't be dealing with it properly. So it's really important to, you know, to make sure the short-term crisis doesn't take over everything that's happening. You need to have this, like, you're dealing with the crisis while you simultaneously are worrying about that long-term vision. And I know how the panic and anxiety sets in, I promise you. But that's the whole point about number 1. When we've got a plan in place, it's much easier to have the plan kick in so that we've got something to go by. That's what stops us from making knee-jerk reactions or decisions that are too fast. And there were a lot of people in the beginning, and still now. In fact, there's a couple of people on here who had wages to do whilst this new wage update was coming, right? And they and I spoke to them and I said to them, don't make the decision now. So just pay your people what you were going to pay them yesterday. You can go back retrospectively, but don't yet, right? A couple of people here were like that. And that's how we decided to deal with that. So we've got to, don't let the short-term crisis take over the long-term vision. Be a disciplined leader with a strong purpose. If you need to, dig out your vision. And if you saw Passion for Hair's story yesterday, right? I said to Daniel, dig out the vision. You know, what's our vision? What's our purpose? And Daniel then wrote it on our story on Passion for Hair yesterday, put it up there. Was it yesterday or the day before, whenever it was? A crisis handled well can make a business stronger, and it can make a team stronger too. So that's got to be our goal. In all of this, we've got to know that this could make us stronger and it can make us better. And we can, you know, we can emerge from this, particularly when we've got this time on our hands. It's you know, the other side of it all is that we have, you know, there can be a positive flip side. And I don't want to be flippant about that. And I really don't. I realise, I mean, this is terrible. I need to tell you that Milka's niece is a nurse and she has contracted coronavirus. Karen, our accountant's daughter, is a nurse. She's a nurse at Cambridge. She's fine. She's doing really well, but she's working hard. I'm sure you have all got friends who are nurses or frontline workers. So people that are working in supermarkets, and every day they have to worry about, are they bringing it back to their family? Terrible, terrible times. So I'm not trying to be flippant, but at the end of the day, our job is to keep our business intact, bring it back bigger and stronger. That's why Boris has made the provision for our business that he has. We're on to finances, and so I'm going to tell you, we are lucky. We are lucky in our industry. Let me explain why. Who remembers when I went live right in the beginning, when people people were posting up stuff, and I went on, and my first purpose of going live in the beginning was to tell people we are not the same as other businesses. 50% of our income goes to wages if we're lucky. You cannot compare us to an office. Remember that? Because that was the first reason that I went live. Because I didn't know how I was going to get the message out there. I was like, whoa, everybody, stop. This was before Boris came out with his furlough, and it was when people were going to start laying people off and et cetera, et cetera. And so for the same reason back then, right, that was a, whoa. Now I want you to realise that 50% burden of our industry is on the shoulders of the government. Everybody's furloughed and the government are paying it all. Okay, they're only paying 80% of it, but it's a massive part of our turnover. That's why I believe the government will do a lot to get our industry back quickly, because we are a massive drain on their scheme, right? So they'll do a lot to try and get us back quickly. That's what I believe. Okay, I've not got a direct line into the government. I just read a lot of political stuff. And if you think about it, it makes sense. So now why are we lucky then? Why are we lucky? Well, because we still got the same grant as all the other businesses on our high street, right? But our biggest cost has been taken care of by the government. So our biggest cost has been taken care of, and we've got the grants, okay? Now I want you to think about restaurants. When they were closed down at a moment's notice, all their stock had to be chucked away because it's perishable. All yours is still on a shelf waiting for you to go back. Now I want you to think about the fashion shops and the dress shops, the boutique that might be next door to you. Their orders that they made for spring, summer, whatever it is, were still on their way. We are receiving a delivery tomorrow from Census. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock at Passion for Hair, we've got 8 pallets arriving. So they've got all their stockers come in, they've had to pay for it, and the doors are not open and they can't sell it. And by the time they open the door, it could be that no one's got a holiday booked anymore, right? So we have to think about some of these things. So we're lucky. Just to put it out there, I want us to understand. So finances. Let's talk about finances. Where you start in a crisis makes a lot of difference. Where you start, and there were people that were panicking on day one that they couldn't pay the wages. Now let's think about that for a second. Day one, they can't pay the wages. Now that's not my situation, and I'm not telling you this to boast. But we quickly looked at our cash flow, and we had enough money to keep us going for 2 months. Now think about the difference of that. That business and that business. Where you start in a crisis makes a lot of difference, right? So if you have a plan and you don't have a plan, it makes a lot of difference. Right? If you've got everyone on board and you haven't got everyone on board, that makes a lot of difference, okay? So where you start today makes a lot of difference. Where you start. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about when you're in a crisis, forget about profit, right? And when I say that, often what happens for us as salon owners, we're not even necessarily thinking about profit. We're thinking about, oh gosh, that's going to cost me that amount of money, right? Because at the end of the day, in a salon, it's your money, right? Oh, I'm going to have to spend this, I'm going to have to spend that. Now, it's really very important that we spend money wisely. So don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't spend money wisely, but in many respects, you've got to make for the exit. You understand what I'm saying? And you've got to put to one side what it's costing, because if you try to, I always say, if you treat it like bones, it will look like bones, right? If you try and pick at the bones, if you try and make it cheap, it will look cheap, and it can't be that way. Crisis is always going to cost us money. I read that there's Chinese, they have salons open and they're taking their guest temperatures, wearing masks, and to do the service in 30 minutes maximum. Okay, so that's what they're doing in China. There's other countries that have opened salons too. Lenka's Czech, and she still has family in Czech. They open salons. Czech Republic have opened salons. So we'll talk about some of that more next week. The next point that I want to make is about cash flow and cash mounting. So we're not worrying about profit when we're in a crisis. You can't, but you do worry about cash flow, because that's what's going to keep you going, right? What kills businesses is not profit. You cannot make a profit and go on for years, right? But if you haven't got any cash, it will come to an end. So the cash flow is really very important, making sure that we can manage that. And of course, that is why Boris has put those grants in quickly. I've got another theory that I'm going to give you in a second. We're going to talk about Cash Mountain. If this does continue much longer, the way that they have processed grants through to businesses to keep the economy going, and by the way, that's what the grants are for, to keep the economy going. I'm going to tell you about a funny letter last week I got, email actually, but what they might do is if they have to put more in, they possibly will put the money through the same channels. So it's very easy for them to if you had a 10,000 grant, it's very easy for them to put another 10,000 through. Do you understand? They're going to do everything they can to keep the economy going. Okay, they are likening this to a war. I am going to tell you something else while we're on finances. Let's see if anyone can guess. Who can tell me, like in World War II, how we financed World War II as a country, how we partly financed it because we literally spent everything we had, okay, on World War II, and then we had to start borrowing money, and we borrowed money from the Americans. And who can tell me when we stopped paying the Americans back? When did we make the last payment? History lesson. Let's see. Oh, 10 people are typing. No, much later than that. No, not this year. Last year, we have finished paying it back. December 2006. Declan. Boffin. It was indeed. The last payment was made December 2006. He typed really fast. He didn't even spend. So from 1945, it took us till 2006 to pay it back, right? 60 years. So you see this will take 60 years to pay back. I'm not sure where we're borrowing the money from, but we're borrowing it from somewhere, probably China. It's going to take 60 years to pay it back if we're lucky, okay? China, Marcus put China too. So let's get back to our own business. We can't worry about that, all right? That is something which is out of our control. We can only focus on what we control. But what I'm trying to, a lot of people have been on the phone to me, sending me messages saying, well, I've got through, this month, and when the portal opens and etc., but people are talking long term, and I don't think I can do it long term. Yes, you can do it long term because they will put more money into the economy, I promise you. I've heard of people holding back money, from landlords and other people that you owe money to. I wouldn't do that if I were you. I don't think it's a good idea. The money you've been given. Oh yeah, I was going to tell you about the letter. So I've been telling a lot of people this money is meant to keep the economy going, right? So last week, one of our landlords, Passion for Hair, our landlord at Passion for Hair, actually, emailing backwards and forwards, and all of that. And he said, the grants are coming, because it's a little bit complicated there at Passion for Hair. If you've been to Passion for Hair, then you'll know that we're on a big business park, okay, and it's a little bit more complicated, and the landlord's been really good. Anyway, and he emailed me and he said, we've done all this work, and we've done this and that and the other and whatever it is, and he said, in terms of your rent payment, he said to me, don't worry about the rent payment until you get the grant next week. We should be getting ours next week apparently. And he said to me, we do expect the rent with the grant. And then he put in brackets, unlike some people who think that they have died and gone to heaven can go and order themselves a brand new car. So I wouldn't do that. I think that that would not be a good thing to do. So while we're on finances, I thought that was important. I now want to talk about Cash Mountain. So Cash Mountain is something that I invented all for myself, really, a long time ago. So what happened was I realised that there was 1 month a week, 1 month in a period where we had rent to pay, VAT to pay, wages to pay, and every time we hit that, we were going round in this like quarterly crisis for years. And it was stressful, it was difficult. And so I at some point I kind of set up this little, I'll call it a game if you like, where I said, I've got to have a Cash Mountain, and I have to build my Cash Mountain so that when that month hits, there's enough money in the cash mountain. I mean, it collapses like that, but there's enough money that we can pay all the bills. And when I've got that cash mountain, this stress that I go through every quarter will disappear, right? It was a turning point in my, not just in my business, in my life. It was a turning point in my life. Well, then a few years later, I was talking with Barry, and I said to Barry, here's, what I do. And I took a pen and a paper and I drew him this concept of the cash mountain. And then I said to him, the problem is if you don't have a cash mountain, then you find yourself, you're always in this cash lake, right? The lake is if you'd have to dive into overdrafts or personal savings or go and borrow from somebody or whatever it is you have to do to get over it, end up at the peril of the HMRC on their scheme, time to pay or whatever it's called. So Barry said, oh, wow, that's brilliant. And at that point, I realised it was going to be a strategy that I teach. And so I've taught it to many of you. So if any of you have ever been in my if you've ever been in my courses and I've taught you about Cash Mountain, give us a wave, a tick, a yes, whatever you want. Come on, let me see that roll. I want to know how many of you know about the Cash Mountain. And still climbing it, that's okay. It's okay. But you're climbing it, right? You're climbing it. And so that's what's important. I was so happy this week when this particular young lady, Leanne Potts, called me up. We were on the phone and she said to me, Debbie, I've got to tell you something which has been a godsend to us. She said, we have been working on our Cash Mountain and we're not there yet, but it's been a saving grace. You see, where you start in a crisis makes a difference, right? So well done, Leanne. Love a good pupil. Yeah, the Cash Mountain, it's a lifesaver. Now, pen and papers going drastically over there. Make yourself a promise. You are going to spend the next, I don't know, it might take you 3 or 4 years, right? 3 or 4 years to build that Cash Mountain for yourself. But let me just tell you something. I'm nearly 60 years old. I've been in business over 30 years. I intend to be in business another 20 years. At the end of those so that'll be 50 years in business. At the end of those 50 years, my son and husband will take over. So the business will go on beyond 50 years. If that's what you want for your business, invest 2, 3,
Can anybody hear me? Can anybody hear me? Can you let me know in the chat if you can hear me? Okay, just so everybody knows, it's to do with Debbie's internet connection. So she's just relocating closer to her router, and we should be good to go in about 3 or 4 minutes. Just bear with us.
Hello, am I back? Am I back? Oh, thank goodness for that. Well, I've had to go to a comfy chair. Change. It must be. It's probably my mum. She's probably watching something on Netflix or something. It's taking up all the bandwidth of the house. I don't know. We have quite good internet here.
Debbie, we lost you.
Right. I'm glad we sorted that out. Yes, mini price. We've got. Need to turn that off. Okay, good. So where was we? Yeah, Declan will sort that out, Jill. Don't worry. Right. Yep, Declan and Daniel taking over. Okay. So so I'm going to be working for another 20 years. Yeah, can you imagine? I'll be 80. They'll take over the business. Hopefully, that's my plan, right? Now, so what I was saying is this: by then, by the time that'd be 50 years in business. Now, if that's what you want for yourself and for your family, spend the next 2 or 3 years. Make your goal to be in a situation where you have that cash mountain and you have it in control. I promise you, it will change your life. It will change your life. It will change your business. So really very important that everybody really thinks about that. You know, did I tell you about Leanne? Did you all hear that bit? I told you about Leanne. And Marcus said, is that being more frugal? Yes, yeah, it is, Marcus. You know, I mean, when I made that decision myself, and it was a long time ago. It was a long time ago. When I did that, I can remember that. David will remember. I had a white sports car, MR2 Toyota. Oh, it's my pride and joy, that car. And when I made this little thing, anyway, I sold that car and I bought a secondhand Ford Sierra. Gosh, I hated that car. Elaine will remember this too. I didn't go on holiday for a couple of years. You know, I really made for myself. You know, I wanted to change, and I was inspired by Leslie Spears. And I'm going to tell you another story now about Leslie. So when I was working with Leslie, of course, I was very lucky. So I had an office just 2 doors away from Leslie Spears for 10 years. It was amazing. And between me and Leslie was Keith Chandler. So at any time, I I was a very good student, and some of you have heard me say this before. That was my 10-year apprenticeship in distribution, and I had a question for Leslie. So I went into his office and I said, I have a question for you, Leslie. When I first started in business, right, I started with nothing. It's not quite true. I mean, I was young. I was 26 years old. I had a house. I sold the house and I took the equity from the house and put it in the business. But I'd bought that house with a small deposit, and the equity had grown, right? And I sold at the right time, took the money, bought a business. I did have a business loan, but really I started with nothing, and I was 26. And if I ended up with nothing, didn't matter, right? You're young, you're 26. As you get older, you've worked years and you build yourself some equity, and you've got a nice home and you've got some assets that you want to keep hold of, and etc. You start to get a little more worried. Where should I make investment and where shouldn't I? So I went and asked Leslie, and I said, Leslie, how do you know when to take a risk, when to make an investment, when to not? He said, here's what you do. He said, you protect 80% and you risk 20%. One of the best pieces of advice anybody ever gave me, amongst with all the other pieces of advice that he ever gave me. So I thought about that when I was thinking about this. I thought about that, and I wanted to share that with you today as well when we were talking about finances. Very, very important, all of these things. It's only been 16 days. It's been 16 days. And some people are in complete panic, right? And I understand, don't get me wrong. And it's not that I'm not empathetic with that. I've been there myself. The first time I nearly went bankrupt, right? And Elaine will remember this. Elaine and I, the two of us, saved that business, because here's what happened. The lady that sold me the business, and I'll share with you, I paid £56,000 for that business in 1988. Yep, 1988. I paid £56,000 for it. That's how you had to get into business in those days. These days, you can set up a salon for £5,000. Right? In those days, the only way you got a premises was that you had to buy an existing business. So that's what I did. And the lady that I bought it from, she was very naughty. She went just outside of the 5-mile radius clause, opened a salon, and there were 5 stylists at the time. She took 3 of the stylists and tried to take all the clients. Well, I did. I got the solicitor to write a letter to her and said, if you advertise that you've got those stylists, and if you take any of the clients, I was going to go back for my 56 grand. So she stopped. And the 3 stylists didn't end up staying there very long, funnily enough. So she stopped that. But Elaine and I did 5 people's clients, just 2 of us. We did about, 60 hours a week or whatever it was. We were there 6 days a week from 8 in the morning till, I can remember one day we finished it was about 10 o'clock at night. And we climbed up those stairs to the staff room, and the pair of us just fell on the floor. And Elaine's husband, he said, we hadn't eaten all day. It was unbelievable. And we said, we're starving. We're laying on the floor, the pair of us. And he said, come on, I'll take you. And the only place that was open was the Dunmo Chinese. And so he drove us to the Dunmo Chinese. And I'm saying that because Jill Cartwright's there. She said, I love this story. He took us to the Dunmo Chinese. We got there at about 10:30 at night. We literally sat there. We were just shoveling the food into us so that we could get there back for the next day. So, and that's how we worked back then. We did. It was madness. But there's some of the things that you have to do in a crisis. And that's really what we are talking about. So here's one of the things that Leslie taught me. He taught me be rich enough to be able to, 2 things, be rich enough to be able to manage in a crisis and to keep your integrity. Right? Integrity's got nothing to do with crisis, really, but they're the 2 things that you always used to say. Be rich enough to manage in a crisis and keep your integrity, because whenever your integrity is tested, it's always going to cost you money. So the last thing on finances, I've got two things actually. More businesses go bankrupt coming out of a recession than during a recession. So get yourself prepared, people, because that is what is going to happen after this. Okay, is people are going to survive through this because the government's paying the wages and giving them grants, right? It's going to be what happens afterwards that will be the telling thing. So I've heard, you know, lots of salons saying that they're going to do discounts, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. I've heard other salons that I'm going to put my prices up. I don't know what the answer is. We're going to talk about it a little bit next week, right? But one of the things you know to think about is what is going to be the strategy when we go back for your business. I don't think discounting prices is going to be good for anybody. I don't think it's going to be necessary in our industry. There will be a lot of sales and stuff on. Gosh, all these dress shops have got to get rid of all this summer stock, right? That's arriving in their back doors into shops with the lights off and the doors not open. We'll talk more about that next week in terms of pricing and the such like. But for now, the most important thing is the cash flow, making sure that you keep that cash flowing through your business, and you know, don't worry too much. I do feel sure that if it goes on much longer, they've not put all this money into the economy this far to have it all crash just, you know, a month down the line. That's not what is going to happen. So number 5, let's talk a little bit about planning. And I want to teach you about the pivot method. So the pivot method is a way of being able to move and maneuver in your business, keeping one foot firmly on the ground, right? And the other foot moves. So in other words, you know, you say these are the fundamentals, though they don't change. So firmly on the ground stays that, and we pivot around. So I want you to think about that a lot. That, you know, what you mustn't do is jump from here to here. Don't do that. Important for us to understand the best way to mitigate the business continuity at this point is really what you're thinking about. So how do you get the business to continue? And of course, you know, the best shot we've got right now is communication. So whatever way you can communicate with your team and your clients, that's going to help the business continuity along with the cash flow. So that's really what you're planning right now. So what's my strategy on social media? What's my strategy by telephone? My strategy by post, if you're going to use post, my strategy by email, whatever it is. What's going to be my strategy to keeping the team engaged, and my cash flow. So there's really only that we can do right now. Prevention and mitigation as a priority. So mitigating the damage that can be done to the business, which right now is not very much, because it's not like your clients can go anywhere else. If we're closed for, although I did hear somebody saying that apparently there are hairdressers still out there doing hair. I mean, are they crazy? Do you know what that means? That means that there are going to be lawyers out there. They are just lining up, waiting. Madness. So in the planning, we can be thinking about the other stuff. At the moment, our focus is completely internal, as it were, not external. So that's kind of good. We're facing inwards. We don't have to worry about that now. But don't underestimate the impact, okay? So don't kind of think at the end of it, and I can see some of the questions and we'll take them at the end, but don't sort of think at the end, oh gosh, you know, everyone's going to need us and da-da-da. They will in the first instance, yes, but how that will pan out long term, we don't know, because we don't know what shape the economy is going to be in long term. So, you know, we have to bear that in mind. So I always say in planning, it's good to do a best case and a worst case. The best case and the worst case, okay? So do both long term. Think about the best case and the worst case. Our response to things has got to be timely and elegant, but get ready to pull the trigger so that you know, when it says go, right, we're ready to go. What will be the first things that we want to do? Well, you're going to want to fill the appointment book, right? So be ready for that. Know how you're going to do that. And here is something really important. I alluded to it at the end of the last webinar. So, you know, I want to bring it up again, and it's testing. So I'm really concerned that things have got to change, but this is the way that I have run my business for the last 30 years, right? Now, when 365 was launched in 1982, Leslie tested every element of the program through a salon in the northeast called Lupin's, which he owned jointly with Hugh Dawson. They consequently, when Leslie then got the distributorship for Paul Mitchell, they sold Lupin's on, because Hugh became the distributor for the North and Scotland, and Leslie was busy with Paul Mitchell. And then what Leslie did was he set up the mentor program. So we've talked about that before, and I was very lucky to be part of that mentor program. I was lucky to be part of that mentor program, and he then put all his ideas through the mentor program, and then later he switched from that program into running all the ideas through, and this was when I was employed then by Salon Success, and all the ideas went through Feathers and other lecturers' salons. So, and I've kept that principle up ever since. So anything you ever hear come from my mouth has been tested, right? So I'm now in a situation where people are asking me, and I'm asking myself, and I've no way of testing these things. So I just want us all to be really, really aware of the fact that 365 had a profound effect on our industry, profound. From a business perspective, it changed our industry forever. In 2000, Leslie was honoured alongside Vidal Sassoon, someone help me out, the organisation that, hang on, it's at the tip of my tongue, the not the NHF, the Fellowship. Thank you, Marie. The Fellowship, in the year 2000, the Fellowship wanted to honour what they called the man of the millennium, and they couldn't decide between Vidal Sassoon and Leslie Spears, so they honoured them both. And they honoured Vidal Sassoon for his creativity and the changes he'd made in our industry for the last millennium creatively, and Leslie for the changes he'd made to our industry from a business perspective, right? I don't, if you were there and you remember that, right, then I was there, I saw it. So for the change they made. I want to tell you this, every program that's out there, every consultant, every business coach, all their programs derive from 365. I promise you. And people now, if you were involved in 365 for a long time and you see that, right, you put on there, yes, you see it, right? So my question is, in this planning, how are we going to make sure, right? How are we going to make sure that what happens as we go through has been tested? And I'm cautioning everybody on that, because I think it's really important. I don't want to see people going down the wrong roads. There are some obvious things, right, that are going to happen. For an example, the way that hygiene is done in the salons, that's obvious that's going to have to increase. We're going to want to increase it ourselves. Things like hand sanitizers and washing our hands, the way that we present ourselves is going to have to be taken into consideration. The signals that we're able to give, and we'll talk about more of this next week. Hairdressing companies are already manufacturing hand sanitizer. First out of the gate was Malibu. You may have seen, but I want to tell you that all Malibu, they manufactured a hand sanitizer within a week. It's called, help me out, Daniel. what it's called. Anyway, some curate, right? Curate. Thank you, Maria. Some people have asked you, can you have it? No, you can't, because everything they're manufacturing right now is going to the front line in the US. I want you also to know that Census are manufacturing one. I've no doubt that everyone's going to come out with one. But let me tell you something we heard last night. Interesting, that the raw material for Census, for their new hand sanitizer, was confiscated at the French border by the French authorities because they've confiscated it for their own front line. Okay, there is a shortage of ingredients, worldwide. That's a knock-on effect. Susan's there, sterilizing machines for equipment. Yeah, the way that we sterilize things, all of these things are kind of obvious ones, right? So they're ones we can be working on already. And in fact, as I say, manufacturers are already working on it, and they're speaking to us distributors. We were on Daniel was on a long phone call last evening. So we know that some of these things will happen. They'll happen automatically. So, so that's all good. So some of those things we don't have to worry about. They will come through. You see, and that's that, by the way, something else I thought about this morning. Like, I was talking to Daniel this morning, and I said to Daniel, how blessed we are, because one of the things about Passion for Hair, we're an independent distributor that only works with independent salons and independent manufacturers. And so we know what's happening with our manufacturers, and they are talking to us, and they are thinking about our needs. I don't know what the others are doing. I don't know about you, because I can't hear anything. We are lucky. Independent. Keep it independent is another big lesson that I hope comes out of this one. And the impact is often underestimated. So, the impact that it'll have long term. So don't underestimate it, okay? Keep thinking about your best case and your worst case scenarios. Now I want to talk to you about symptom and cause. And the best way I know to be able to, it is a story that I've told for many, many years, and some of you have heard many times, but I'm sorry, it's the best way I know, and so I'm going to tell it again. How we learn about symptom and cause. So I want you to imagine I'm in my salon, and it's Friday at 3 o'clock, and I am blow drying Val's hair. I'm in a dreamy mode. So I'm blow drying Val's hair, right? She comes in every week at 3 o'clock, Friday at 3 o'clock. In comes Val. I'm blow drying her hair. How are you, Val? Good. I'm glad you're well. And then someone says, Debbie, come quickly. There's a fire in the corner. Oh, excuse me a minute, Val. Just need to go over to the corner there. Apparently there's a fire. Going to see what's going on. Go over this corner. Little fire. Take out my fire extinguisher. Shh. Put the fire out. Go back to Val. Sorry about that, Val. Little fire in the corner. Don't worry. I'll put it out. So, Debbie, come quick. The fire in the corner. It started again. Excuse me, Val. Just need to go over there to the corner. Apparently the fire started again. Go over there. Take the fire extinguisher. Shh. Put it out. Go back to Val. Sorry about that, Val. Keep interrupting you. Yeah, I know you're in a hurry. And, hello, Mrs. Smith. Yes, take a seat. I'm running a little bit behind. We've been having a bit of a crisis. We've got a fire in the corner over there. Debbie, come quick. The fire in the corner, it started again. Oh, now I'm in a crisis, and I'm running around like a headless chicken, and I'm getting behind with my clients, and I'm trying to put the fire out. Now, the fire is only synonymous with lots of crises that we deal with. But what was the one thing that I didn't ask myself in that scenario? What didn't I ask? What didn't I ask myself? How was that started? What is causing the fire? So in crisis, we must understand the difference between the symptom and the cause. The fire is the symptom of something that is causing the fire, right? And we do that a lot. So always when you're in a crisis, go, this is the symptom. What was the cause? Now, not helping us very much in coronavirus because it's way over our heads, but in other crises, really very, very important to think about that. Okay, so number 6 is the stress management. And it's not just the stress management of the individual, it's the stress management of everybody. Somebody had put earlier about fight or flight, and I'm sure many of you have had these feelings over the last 16 days. Yes, it's all it is 16 days. Feels like much longer. So, of course, the fight or flight comes from the emotions, and the adrenaline gets into the amygdala, and the amygdala triggers that fight or flight. That stress management. Our teams are having the same feeling. I want you to know, right? Every now and again, they will be worried about that when they see on the news and it says, oh, this business or that business, whatever it might be, you know, Debenhams and this many jobs, and I don't know, wherever else jobs are going, right? People are thinking about themselves. They've got lots of time to think, and they've got the freedom to do nothing. The freedom to do nothing. Think about that. Never before in our lifetime have people been paid to have the freedom to do nothing. It's really quite interesting. So we've got lots of people living in that low positive. If you were on last week, the low positive, remember, that's where they're living. We have to think about how we keep those people engaged. And I've got a confession to make. I have not been practicing what I preach. And I have been finding serving my reservoirs over the last few weeks really quite difficult. Now, you're going to be proud of me because I did make a confession about my 2 glasses of wine a night. I made that confession. A few of you probably heard it. And but the last 2 nights, I have forced myself not to turn to the wine. I was like, I have got to stop this. So the last 2 nights, I have not had a drink, and I have gone to bed with my chamomile tea. So thank you for the well dones. But I'm telling you that because when we talk about stress management, it is difficult when you're in a crisis to manage the stress. You think, oh, it doesn't matter. I can take care of myself later. You know, this is more important right now, but it's not. You've got to keep it balanced. You must try hard. Please try hard to keep it balanced. Focus on those reservoirs. Don't let everything get out of control. Keep in control. And I know it's hard right now because there are so many things that are out of our control, right? So many things that, we just have to take direction from somebody else. But you must do what you can, okay? You're the leader. Then here's the last one, number 7. The post-event analysis. And this almost links back to number 1, but it's a really important point because we must learn from the experience. The problem is that once we get given the go-ahead, right, we'll all be busy going. And then what will happen is, Daniel always says to me, I love this, Daniel always says to me, Debbie, remember, Prince got 2 weeks. Does anybody know what he's talking about? He says it to me every time. Prince got 2 weeks. What's he talking about? Let's see if somebody knows. No. Prince got 2 weeks. Timing. Yep. 2 weeks. Prince died. He was apparently the greatest singer, artist, recording, video, whatever of all time. And after 2 weeks, he was forgotten about. He wasn't in the news anymore. Prince got 2 weeks. Daniel says it to me all the time. Whenever he wants me to think outside, he goes, Prince got 2 weeks. And I'm like, oh, yeah. So we must remember that. What we've got to do is we got to do the what if, and you've got lots of time now to do some of this crisis planning. We identified all the things that we are exposed to besides what we have today, but do that what if. Here's something you must be taking into consideration when they do lift the lockdown. There's a possibility that we all go back and we have to lock down again. So make sure you've got some plans in place for that. It's a possibility. Let me just tell you something, that what happens is in analysis, after a crisis, this also happens, by the way, when businesses go bankrupt. And did I say earlier that more businesses go out of business coming out of a recession than going in? I think I did. But what happens is this: when the analysis is done, when you do the analysis yourself, you have a tendency to, and researchers prove this, the blame goes 10% internally and 90% externally. If you find yourself doing the analysis and that's the balance you're getting, you need to look more internally, because it's normally way, more than that. So the way that it affected you, yes, of course, if you go lockdown, what caused it? Yes, it's going to be government, but what caused you not being able to pay, pay the rent? What caused that? Do you see what I mean? What caused you to? So you must look internally, because it's how you're going to fix those things for the long term. And that's my goal, that everybody here gets through it through the long term. Make sure you identify those things properly. Okay, and now we get to the Q&A, and I look over here and I can, who was Prince? Very funny. I love that. So Declan will put the questions up. They're going to come up. I'm not sure if you see them as well or just me. I'm sure that you see them as well. He's just retrieving them, I'm sure. Can you send the info from HMRC? I will post it in the Business Counts group. Okay, so if you want that information, I'll post the link there. Do you think we'll have a rush of clients as soon as we open and then be quiet after the madness quietens down? People will be frugal with their money now. Okay, so when we talk next week, I'm going to answer the question briefly. When we talk next week, we are going to talk about this. Of course, we're going to have a rush of clients. You've got, look at my hair. I've had to actually change my style today, right? And yes, of course, we're going to have a rush. My answer is going to be, let's not try and manage the rush, so getting the stylist to do more days and etc. Do I then think we're going to be quiet? I'm not sure, because I want you to imagine this. So we have a ton of people who are furloughed on 80% pay, no petrol to put in the car, no travel, no holiday to pay for, no clothes to buy, no. I opened my wardrobe this morning. I was like, oh, I can't wait to wear these clothes again, right? Because loungewear is the new, Saturday night getting ready or whatever it is. So there's a lot of people out there that actually have got a lot of money, right? Hairdressers that are living at home with their parents. I don't know. So we have to think three-dimensionally, and that's what we're going to do next week. We're going to think more three-dimensionally, because I think that there's not one answer. People don't all think the same, okay? And it's about people's priorities. So we're going to talk about that next week. I've got some ideas. Would you borrow from a bank in the cash flow crisis? If that's what you need to do, then yes, you have to do it. You must. What's your alternative? Your alternative is if you're going to lose your business, then you're going to have to go and work for somebody else. Now, some of you might feel like that's what you want to do, but I said in one of my other webinars, people who had made flippant comments to me in the past, you're saying, oh my God, I think I might sell my salon. I'm not sure I'm cut out with this. Were then telling me after the crisis, my God, my salon, it's the most important thing in the world to me. So would you borrow from a bank in the cash flow crisis? Yes, I would. There's lots of things you can do. You can halt your mortgage for 3 months. And if you've not done that yet, talk to your building society about it. I've not done it yet, but actually it's something that I'm seriously considering, because I'm realizing that the repercussion of doing that is actually very, very small. So, but initially I was saying, don't all rush out there and freeze your mortgage, because you don't know what the repercussions are going to be. Now the building society can tell you in very good terms what the repercussions of that are going to be. My biggest competitors advertise that the first week will be free for the NHS. Good luck for them. They must have a big cash mountain. Let me tell you, I could not do that. I have seen that that some people are doing this free for the Sunday, the NHS. I don't know who. I've not signed up to that. I've not even considered it. I've looked at it. I can't see who is organising that, who is sponsoring that. I'm not sure my business can afford that. I'm not sure my stylist can afford that. I saw so I saw a comment where someone said, "Oh, I was going to make an appointment and I'm happy to pay for it." So I don't think that's a good idea. Also, I'm very confident, controversially now. I did say in the beginning, if you come for an easy ride, then don't come here. Very controversially, there is a wait a minute, there's a petition out there. Okay, there's a petition out there that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Number one, some of the things that they've asked for, the government have already given. Number two, some of the things that they've asked for are already being done by another body. So it shows that it's very ill-informed. The petition is very ill-informed. Thirdly, it's very badly put together, very poorly put together, this petition. And you can tell that it's been done in a rush and a hurry. So too much panic out there, people. Calm down. How do you suggest we keep the team engaged? I'm struggling with that now. I'm suggesting education and constantly keeping in touch with them, but it's hard work and I feel deflated from that side of it. Okay. So, and a lot of people have said that they're having problems. We've got some people too in my salons that are not doing as well as others. I think it's telling us a lot about our team. So that's okay, but I wouldn't give up. I would keep it going. I last week went live in our team group, literally went live without any warning to anyone, right? And then I started a fun quiz, to kind of let people see that actually what we are doing, us people that are engaging, we are having fun as well. It's not hard work. There are some things, of course, that are mandatory. So if you've got apprentices, they've got to engage. If they don't, they're in danger of their training being suspended. So some of the people here had some really good examples, doing quizzes, put some quizzes up, house party, daily chats on the WhatsApp, play games. Yeah, make it fun to keep people engaged. Maybe give them a call and say, have you got enough shampoo and conditioner? Just like you would do for a client, just do what you can. And if people won't engage, that tells us a lot. So if you get to the point where you have to lay people off, the clues will be there. How can we plan ahead, starting back to work when we're still unsure what restrictions, if any, the government will put on us or our business? The government are not going to put any restrictions on us. We're not regulated through the government. They might put suggestions of what all people should do, but we're an unregulated industry. So it's going to be about what we as an industry put together. And one of the sad things, by the way, let's just talk about regulation for a minute. So the government have already responded to our industry about regulation. And what the government's response has been, when 80% of your industry are together, so we are subscribed together, the government will look with us to industry regulation. Okay, but until we can organise ourselves as 80% being organised all together, the government are not prepared to look at it. That has already been responded to by the government. The NHF publicised that, etc., etc. So here's my frustration. We're fragmented. We've got a group over here, a group over there, a group over there, a group over there, and then we've got people who won't even pay the subs. And they're not even that expensive in the grand scheme of things if you compare them to what other industries pay. So, that's on regulation. That's what I've got to say about regulation. But next week, Andrew, we will talk on our webinar next week. We'll talk about, together, we're going to talk about some of the things that we think. It's going to be very heavily Q&A and you guys giving you feedback. We're going to talk about our three-dimensional ideas and what we think about that. What work expectations do you think the team will have on return? I think you should ask them. That's what I think. I don't know. I can't read their minds. I think you should ask them. Unfortunately, I don't know your team. I wish I did. Never been in your salon. But my accountant has said to be careful of how much the company still earns as such, whilst we are postponed, so we can prove that we didn't have any income. What do you think about that? I understand Mountain, etc. maybe pop in as a loan to the company. Yeah, okay. So that's where I said about documentation. So if you've got to put personal money in for what, some of your savings in, we're talking now about limited companies, and this will be where you're employed by your limited company, and so therefore you're furloughed. So if you're going to put personal money in, yes, you'd put it in as a director's cash injection, be it a loan, capital loan into the business, and that's where I said keep records of everything. If you don't need the record afterwards, that's good. But yeah, that's the thing to do. You do have to, you can't put it in as income from sales. And if people still want to keep in touch with their clients doing sales, here's what you do. Now, I want you to imagine that your next door neighbour said, Jude, because it's Jude asked the question. I think I've already had this conversation with Jude. Jude, can you recommend me somewhere I can buy knitting wool? You wouldn't hesitate to say, oh, yes, I know where there's a knitting company online. Let me send you a link. So what you do is your client says, where can I buy shampoo? You say, well, you can't buy it from me because my business is closed. However, I'm going to recommend you go to my distributor, and my distributor will sell it to you. And we will sell it to your client. We only sell to the public at RRP, right? We will do it for you. We're putting a gift in with every purchase. We're out of hand cream, but we've got brushes are going in, and I can't remember the other things, but there's depending on what, but nice things are going in, nice gifts to your clients. And for our customers, we are making sure that we share at a later date. That's what I'm going to say, that we are going to share the profits from those sales. So we're keeping note of all of those sales to help you out. Okay. Suspension is protecting our juniors with ISA. Wait a minute. Suspension is protecting our juniors with ISA. It freezes their training. Super annoying when they can't be bothered. Yep. Okay, Tommy, I know your situation. So Tommy's got a situation where he's got an apprentice that's checked out. She's taken a holiday, and his training provider has said the training's on hold. But when you've got situations like that, the people are furloughed. Okay. There's nothing you can do about it. Let's worry about that when they come out of furlough. We've got bigger things to worry about right now. It is super annoying because you think we've already put that investment in. I know, time, emotion, they're part of your future plans, and then that's where they are. But I promise you, there are going to be a lot of businesses that long-term don't survive this. I predict that there's going to be a lot of hairdressers who are working, alone at the moment that might change their mind about that after this. So I think the industry we came out of is not going to be the same industry we go back into. There's going to be a bit of movement of team members, so maybe you can get a new one who's more keen. Could we request a planned visit to our salon? Could we request a planned visit to our salon located in a closed department store to check up on the facilities? We have to speak to the store about that. I'm sure that they will be, you see, because your insurance, you should be checking your premises regularly because of your insurance. You should be logging that, so keep notes of when you go. And what I would do in your situation, Kelly, is I would make that request in writing to them and say we request access, one person access. I'd put in there something like we're well aware of the the constraints on social distancing, etc., but just can one person come? I mean, at the end of the day, with social distancing, and believe me, I'm all for it, but we have got to remember that we are all going to supermarkets, and having to manage, and some people are not sticking to that. I nearly hit a man the other day with I was just picking up some ginger, it was, so it was a really nice club shape to And he honestly came within like that far of me to get something. And I thought, and for a minute there, I nearly hit him with the ginger. I thought, get back, you might have the lurgy. But you understand what I'm saying. So there should be no reason why they shouldn't let you in to check your facilities, and social distancing is fine, and they must be doing it themselves. So they should be able to give you a time to be able to do that. Or if not, they should respond and say, we'll take the responsibility of checking your facilities, whatever, I don't know. Hope that helps. There's a couple. Should our clients contact Passion for Hair direct for retail instead of going through us? You can do that if you like. I mean, I tell you what is easier for us, because you know your clients, what's easier for us. Please understand, we're used to, we've followed a lot of our team, because what we're doing is, it's a lot of activity for not very much money, but we are happy to do it because it's keeping us engaged with you. So this is what works best, okay, is if you take your orders and put it all on one email, with the client, what she wants, her address, because we've got to send it, and then her contact number, and then we can phone her, we can take payment, and then we can send it. So it's nice and easy for you, and then it's much easier for us. If the clients contact us, and they can do that if you want, but if they do, it means that we've got to deal with it right from the beginning, and then they go, you know which shampoo? It's pink. Okay, so that's taking up quite a bit of time. I hope that answers the question. But we are happy to do both, but help us if you can. What do you recommend to holiday entitlement on returning to the salon? Well, so far the government have said that holiday will be honoured, and that the government are, I'm not sure whether it's a recommendation or a legislation, because we've not been able to get clarity on this yet, but the holidays being able to be carried over 2 years, but who knows, they might change their mind, and the government are allowed to do that. And if we're off for a long time, it probably would be better that the government said, well, everyone's been paid for sitting at home anyway, and maybe they will temporarily change the holiday. But that will be so unpopular with employees. Depends how they interpret it. I mean, holiday is meant for people to have a rest period. Well, they're getting a good rest. So we'll have to wait for that one. It's not been decided. But yep, they're accruing holiday through this period. They are indeed, as it stands right now. Yes. That might change. Okay, so the next question, Declan. Any more questions? We've got to the end of the any more questions? I can see someone's typing. If there are no more questions, let me just tell you then. So there is a, so Jill said they'll have an extra day's bank holiday entitlement as they're furloughed for Easter. Yeah, because, the government, the way that you distribute that holiday in your business is one thing. The government legislation says that people have 28 days paid holiday a year. It doesn't matter whether it's bank holidays or not. So that's how it's sitting right now. Thank you, Declan. I nearly forgot, and I am going to do that. Okay, so we'll have to wait for holiday legislation. Okay, it was fantastic and motivating. I have got something for you, Declan. Do you want to run it up for us? I thought about this morning. Some of you have heard this before, but I wanted to share it because I just thought, in thinking about where we are right now, and how we are getting time to do things, and it's not in the right place. Declan, can you get it back to the right place? This is new for us. So this is the video. This book is called The Missing Piece. Some of you will know about it. It's by a man called Shel Silverstein. I love his stuff, The Missing Piece. I thought about it this morning. I said to Declan, I've got to get this on my webinar. So I'm going to read it to you, but it's there. It was missing a piece, and it was not happy. So it set off in search of its missing piece. And as it rolled, it sang this song. Oh, I'm looking for my missing piece, looking for my missing piece. Hide-a-hole, here I go, looking for my missing piece. Sometimes it baked in the sun, and then the cool rain would come down. And then the cool rain would come down and the snow would come down too. And because it was missing a piece, it could not roll very fast, so it would stop to talk to a worm or smell a flower. And sometimes it would pass a beetle, and sometimes the beetle would pass it. And this was the best time of all. And on it went over oceans. Oh, I'm looking for my missing piece. Over land and over seas, so grease my knees and fleece my bees. I'm looking for my missing piece. Through swamps and jungles, up and down mountains, until one day, lo and behold, I found my missing piece. So fleece my knees and grease my knees, I found my missing piece. He said, wait a minute, before you go greasing your knees and fleecing your bees, I'm not your missing piece. I'm nobody's missing piece. I'm my own missing piece. And if I wanted to be somebody's missing piece, I'm not sure I'd be yours. He said sadly, I'm sorry to have bothered you, and it rolled away. This one was too small. This one was too big. And this one was a little bit too sharp. And this one was too square. And one time it seemed to have found the perfect piece, and it didn't hold on tightly enough and lost it. And another time it held too tightly and it broke. And so on and on it rolled. Having adventures, falling into holes and bumping into stone walls. And then one day it came upon another piece that seemed to be just right. Hi, it said. Hi, said the piece. Are you anybody else's missing piece? Not that I know of. Well, maybe you want to be your own piece. I can be somebody's and still be my own. Maybe I do. Maybe we won't fit. It fit perfectly. At last. And away it rolled. And because it was now complete, it rolled faster and faster. Faster than it ever rolled before. So fast that it couldn't stop to talk to a worm or smell a flower. Too fast for a butterfly to land. But it could sing its happy song. At last it could sing, I've found my missing piece. And it began to sing, I've found my missing piece. I've found my missing piece. Oh, now that it was complete, it could not sing at all. Aha, it thought, so that's how it is. So it stopped rolling and it set the piece down gently and it slowly rolled away. And as it rolled, it softly sang. I'm looking for my missing piece, looking for my missing piece. Hide-a-hole, here I go, looking for my missing piece. And I thought about that today because that's us at the moment. We've got time to smell the flowers and for a butterfly to land whilst we're looking for our missing piece. So I want to thank you for joining me today. Yet again, it's been great. And I'm looking forward to next week, Wednesday, 11 o'clock, same time, same place. And we've got census tomorrow. Jude on Thursday, census Q&A. It's Easter Friday, Good Friday, Easter Sunday, Easter Monday. I wish you all a happy Easter. I might speak to some of you before that. Thank you all. If there's anything you need, you message, email, telephone, whatever it is you need. We are here for you. And enjoy that sunshine that's out there. Goodbye.